Hey, my name's Christian Taylor, and I'm the creator of Alpine AJAX. I wanted to share how I go about building applications using Alpine AJAX, and also share some getting started tips and tricks for using the library. So let's jump into this demo that I've got set up. It's a blog post with a list of comments and a comment form at the bottom to post new comments. So right now, this is all just basic HTML, server rendered HTML. And this follows the first rule of Alpine AJAX, which is don't use Alpine AJAX. And what I mean by that is the core functionality of whatever application you're building should just work with basic HTML forms and links. And then we can sprinkle in some JavaScript to enhance the user experience as we go. A lot of the ideas that are baked into Alpine Ajax are borrowed from the book Resilient Web Design by Jeremy Keith. And you can actually find this online for free at resilientwebdesign.com. I'd encourage that you check it out. So let's get into the functionality of the app that we've built so far. So you can type in here, submit a new comment. When you submit a comment, you get a notification at the top of the page that a new comment was created. And if we scroll down, we see that comment in the list. We can also use this link to edit our comment. When we click this, we're taken to a new page where we can update the text, and then we're redirected back to our blog post page again with the updated comment. Finally, we can remove comments. So clicking this button will submit a form that hits our server and just removes that single comment from our comment list. Finally, we have some basic validation in this form. So if we try to submit a message that is too short and submit that, we'll get a notification or a error message that our message must be at least 3 characters. So let's hop over to the server-side code and see how this is all working. I've built this with PHP and Laravel, but you can really use any server-side framework you want. Alpine AJAX is completely server agnostic. So I've set up a post controller, and all this is in charge of is just rendering our blog post page over here. Not much to see there. But I also have this comment controller, and this is in charge of all of the comment related actions. So you can see we can store, edit, update, and delete comments through this controller. And if we look at the store endpoint, there's nothing really crazy going on here. We've got we're validating our incoming request there. We're storing a new comment in the database, and then we're redirecting back to the post page to see the new comment. One thing of note is this with method. What this is doing is pushing a message into our user session that we can then retrieve later to show on the page. And I'll actually show where that's happening. This is our layout, our app layout, basically the shell of this blog. And right here in this code block, we're checking our session data to see if there's a new message to show. And if there is, we're rendering it to the page here. So as you might have noticed, this app right now is pretty clunky. You know, when I submit a new comment, the whole page refreshes, and I've got to scroll all the way back down to the bottom of the page to see my comment. So let's try to enhance some of this experience with some JavaScript. So I've just copy and pasted the code from the Alpine AJAX install instructions. And I've already got Alpine AJAX and Alpine installed on my machine. So here we're importing Alpine, we're importing Alpine AJAX, and then we're initializing Alpine AJAX as an Alpine plugin. So if you're not familiar with Alpine, I like to think of it as a modern replacement for jQuery. It's about a third of the size of jQuery, and it basically lets you kind of do everything that library used to do. You can toggle the state of things, you can toggle classes, you can really do a lot of complex things that you might need to rely on like Vue or React for. Alpine can do it. So let's just get our feet wet with a basic Alpine component first before we start getting into this more complex AJAX functionality. So we're going to add a close button to our notification message up here. So I've got this markup already for a button, and we're going to initialize this notification element as a Alpine component, and we're going to give it some initial state. So we set up a Boolean here, the show equals true, and when we click this button, we want show to equal false. And then finally, we want to toggle the visibility of this element based on the value of that Boolean that we set up. So we can do that using xShow. And if we pass in our show Boolean there, with any luck, when we try this, we should get a dismissible notification. So if I click that, cool, our notification is dismissed. So this wouldn't be super hard to build in vanilla JavaScript either. But what I like about Alpine is that it gives us some extra utilities to make things really easy that might be a little more complicated with just vanilla JavaScript. So as an example, if I add this transition directive, transition, that's a hard word to spell, directive, we can add like a subtle animation with just one extra attribute. So we're going to set the duration to 500 milliseconds for this transition. And what we have now, if we close this, is we get that nice little fade out animation with just an extra JavaScript or an extra HTML attribute. Okay, so let's go focus on the actual like comment form now. This is where we were seeing a lot of the user experience issues. So just like we did before, we're just going to sprinkle in some JavaScript, some HTML attributes to get this working. So first, we want to preserve the state of the page whenever a new comment is posted. And we can do that pretty easily by turning this form into an AJAX powered form. What that means is like instead of when I submit a new comment, instead of doing a normal form request and refreshing the entire page, we actually want this form to issue an AJAX request to our server and then take the content from that AJAX request and insert it into the page without actually performing a full refresh. And we can make that happen by targeting an element on the page from this form. So we add X target to our form, and now we need to give it an element to target on the page. And this element needs to have a unique identifier. So we're going to go up to our comment list here, and we're going to add an ID to the comment list. We're going to call it comments list, and we're going to set this ID in as the value of X target. So now this form is targeting our comments list. So if we give the page a refresh and try typing this in, we'll see that our comment is just added to the list now without the full page refreshing. And behind the scenes, this is just performing an AJAX request, loading the same page, and because we've given the comment list a unique ID, it can identify where on the page the comment list is, and it can swap out the new comment list for the old comment list automatically. So that's pretty neat, but we've introduced a couple issues here. You can see now that since we're only updating the comment list on the page, our form state isn't reset when we submit it now. So if I try to post another comment, our test1 text remains there. So in order to fix this, we can just target this form itself in addition to the comment list. So we'll give this form an ID of comments form, and we'll add comments form to our target. So now when we post a comment, our form is reset and we get a new our comment list is updated. Okay, so just like we can, we can add this AJAX functionality to forms, and we can also add it to links as well. So it would be really cool if when I click this edit link, instead of taking us to a separate page, we could just edit this comment in line in this list here. And we can have that happen pretty easily by just adding an X target to our edit link. And in this case, we don't want to target the full comment list. We just want to target this comment box here and replace it with the content that is found on this edit page. So in order to do that, our individual comment items need a unique ID. So we'll give them a unique ID of comment underscore, and then we'll pass in the database ID of the comment so that we can guarantee that each comment ID on the page is unique. And we'll take this ID here and we'll target it in our link. Okay, so there's one final step to this. When we click this link, we're loading the edit endpoint, the edit page that's in a different template. And it's going to be looking for comment underscore ID or an element with comment underscore ID in that page markup. So we need to jump over to our edit page and we need to give our edit page an ID that matches the ID of the comment that this edit page is for, essentially. So with that in place, now if we click this edit link, we see that the edit form is actually just loaded in line into the comment. And if we go ahead and update this text, we're going to find that when we submit this, our page is reset again because that update form doesn't have X target on it, so it's not going to perform an AJAX request. It's going to perform a full page reload. So we can fix that here by just adding X target to this form. And when we submit this form, we just want it to target itself. We essentially just want the form to redirect back to this post page and just load in a comment, the comment element that's in the list of comments. So we can add our unique comment ID again. So this form is just targeting itself essentially. So now if we test this out, we'll edit, change this back to test 3, save. And now when that form is saved, it's performing an AJAX request instead of a full page refresh. So the final action we have to AJAXify on this page is the remove action. And we can do that very similarly. So if we jump over to our post page again, we just need to add an X target onto this remove form. And again, we're just going to be targeting the comment that this form belongs to. So with that in place, when we click remove, we're removing comments now. Now you'll notice it's like really easy to remove comments, like maybe a little too easy. It'd be nice if we could ask for confirmation before you want to do a destructive action like this. And that's really simple. We can just use Alpine event listener to listen for an event that our AJAX request is firing. And in this case, we want to listen for an AJAX AJAX before event. So this event fires every time, or just before an AJAX request is issued by any form or link. So before this AJAX request is issued, we want to confirm with the user that they actually want to delete this comment. So if they accept this confirmation, this is going to return true. If they deny the confirmation, it will return false. And in that case, we want to prevent default on the AJAX event. And this will essentially cancel the AJAX request from happening. So let's give this a test. So if we click remove now, we get a pop-up, are you sure? If we click cancel, nothing happens. The AJAX request was canceled. But if we go back and click OK, then our comment is removed from the list. Cool. So what's really awesome about this is that we've added all of this interactivity to our page without ever having to touch our server-side code or our controllers. This is all just kind of client-side template-based enhancements that we're making. So the one final thing that we need to fix on this page is the notifications. You'll notice that when we perform any actions, our notifications aren't showing up. And this is kind of a little bit of a tricky situation because those notifications actually exist on the layout of our website, not the actual blog post page. So we could go through each of these AJAXified forms and we could add like another notification target to each of these, but that's pretty tedious and it's pretty prone to break, you know. As soon as you forget to add notification to one of these targets, you don't have a notification show up anymore. So in a case where we have like a global element like this that we just kind of always want to participate in any AJAX request, we can use a new special AJAX attribute, Alpine AJAX attribute called sync. And that looks like this. And what we need in order to synchronize this element with every AJAX request is an ID, just like all the other elements. So we'll just give it an ID of notifications. So now that it has a unique ID and we've set it to synchronize with every AJAX request, now when we perform any AJAX request in our application, that notification will come along for the ride, essentially. So any of these actions now trigger those notifications to show up at the top of our page. Cool. So where do we go next? Let me show you some optimizations that we could do on the server side. So like I said, so far we haven't touched anything related to like the server side code. We're just living in the templates and we're just adding some attributes and making this feel real good. So one thing to note is that a lot of other HTML over-the-wire frameworks will encourage you to use HTML partials. And right now, every time we're doing an AJAX request, we're actually handling the entire page that's being sent back from the server. But Alpine AJAX also supports partials if you want to further optimize any of these AJAX requests that you're doing. So if we take a look at our edit page, for example, when we click this edit link, we're actually getting the entire page back from the server, but we're only using the update form within that page. So to kind of demonstrate this, if I open this link in a new tab, we'll see that we're getting like this in the whole page in this link. But I could just remove the layout from around this element and just create an HTML partial instead. And now we can send back a smaller bundle of HTML and kind of optimize that AJAX request. So now the same thing works, but we just have a smaller payload that we're sending over the wire. So by default, Alpine AJAX just works with regular full pages, but you have the ability to further optimize any endpoint you want and just return fragments instead. And we like to give you this option because I think performance should exist on a spectrum, right? Like every single server request doesn't have to be instant, you know? There are some endpoints that are more important than others. And so we want to allow developers to kind of make that trade-off themselves on whether they just want to get the job done or they want to get it done in a performant way with a little bit of extra work. So another thing that we could look at is, I'd say another criticism of this HTML over the wire approach that I see a lot is that it works for simple apps, but when things start to get complex, it breaks down. And I'd like to make this UI a little more complex here. And then we can show you how we can tackle this challenge. So I'm going to add this new sidebar to our blog, and it's got a couple new controls here. It's got a list of the latest comments. So they're comments in the reverse chronological order. You can see they match the comment list down here, and it has a new like button. And this like button is already tied up with is already set to issue an AJAX request, and it's just going to target the sidebar itself. So when we click like, we'll see that it posts a new comment, and the comment is just you liked this post. But because this like button is only targeting this list, we're not seeing the same comment down here in the main comments list. So see, I'll add 3 new likes, and we see them all pop up here, but this list isn't changing because this form isn't targeting this list. And the reverse is true also. This comment form down here is only targeting this comment list. So if I add a new comment, it posts the first comment the comment that we wrote, but then it also updates to add all of the missed like posts that we missed in this AJAX request. So this is a case where we have 2 components on the page that are kind of interdependent, but they aren't targeting each other. And so in order to fix this, like the manual way would be like, okay, we need to go into this form, and we can't just target the latest comments. We also have to target this comments list. And then we would have to jump over into the blog post, and we'd have to update our comment form to also target the latest comments. And you could do that, but you can see how as the number of components on the page grow and the interdependencies between these components grow, this can start to kind of get out of hand and like maybe not scale well. So now I'll show you a pattern that you can use to kind of make this all go away. And essentially what we're going to do is use an event bus to make each component on the page responsible for updating itself, rather than having to tie components together through like the xTarget attribute. So to tackle this, we can jump back into our controller, and for the first time here, we'll actually make some very basic server-side code changes. So we're gonna kind of piggyback off of this concept of this notification that we have, and where this notification message is notifying our user that something happened on the page, like a comment was created. We also want to create a similar notification for our front end to notify the components on our front end that an event was triggered or like something happened to comments. So we're just going to modify this notification code, and we're going to trigger an event, and we'll call the event comment changed. And we want to trigger this event whenever a comment changes on the server side. So we want to do that in the case of a comment update and also a comment delete. So then we want to jump over to our layout, and we'll copy our notification code here and modify it a bit to work with our new event that we just created. So instead of showing a message here, we actually just want to render an element. And when this element is rendered to the page, we want to dispatch a custom JavaScript event, dispatch. And that event will be the event passed down from our server-side code. So let's see this here. Let's see this working. So if we submit a comment, we don't see anything up here, but if we inspect the page, we'll see that we have our notification, and then immediately underneath we have this Alpine component that is just dispatching an event called comment changed. So now we can tie our individual components on the page up to that comment changed event. And when that comment changed event is triggered, we can then trigger each component to update itself, essentially like performing a server refresh. So let's tackle this sidebar first. So what we want to do is add xinit, which initializes an Alpine component, which essentially turns this sidebar component into an Alpine component. And then we want to add an event listener with x on. And this event will be our comment changed event. And since this event is being dispatched way up here at the top of our layout, it's going to bubble up to the window element on this page. So we actually just want to listen to we want to listen for this comment change event on the window element. So when this comment change event is fired, we want to trigger an AJAX request to the same page that we're on right now, which is essentially like a refresh. So window location.href. So that's the current URL. And then finally, when this component refreshes itself, we want to ignore any focus events that might happen. So we can add focus false to ignore any type of like autofocus or something that might an event that might trigger a focus on an element. So now that we've got this, our component will essentially just refresh itself after an element is changed. Or after a comment on the server has changed. So let's try adding a new comment here. And we see that when we posted that, this targets this list and it updates. But now our latest comments list is also updating. See? And so now we want to do the reverse. We want it so that when we use this like button, we see these like comments show up down here. And so we can do that by just copying our same refresh code here and applying that to our comment list. So we have our comment list here. We're going to paste our AJAX code there. And we can now remove a comments list from this target if we wanted to, because the comment list is basically responsible for itself now. Anytime a comment changes on our server, it's going to refresh its state. So now we can test this out when we post a comment. Our list is still updated, and also our latest comments list is updated. And now when we hit this like button, both of these lists are updated. So if we take a step back now and kind of look at what we've done, we made this comment list responsible for updating itself whenever a server-side event is triggered. We also made this list responsible for updating itself whenever a server-side event is triggered. So when I submit this form, we're actually creating a request to the server to create a new comment, and then this list is also sending a request to the server to refresh itself, and this list is also sending a request to the server to refresh itself. So we've now expanded the number of like server requests that are happening here, right? With every new comment that we submit, we're triggering a waterfall essentially of 3 server requests for every new comment. So like that's maybe not like have we actually like solved this problem here? We sort of just moved the problem somewhere else, right? Like now we have all these, we're hammering our server with all of these extra requests that we didn't have before. But actually, what's really happening here is that Alpine AJAX is smart enough to identify that each of these refresh requests that are coming from these individual components is actually the same request that is occurring with our comment submission form. So instead of triggering three separate requests, when we submit a comment, we're actually just seeing the request for the new comment and then the redirect response back from the server. Um, all of these three separate AJAX requests are actually bundled together in a single request so that we're saving, overloading our server with all these redundant requests. So yeah, I think that's all I kind of had to show. Hopefully that gives you some ideas and patterns on how you can improve your applications, but keep like a really streamlined approach to building apps. I've been doing this for a couple years now, and it's just really straightforward and simple and easy to just build some more complex UIs. You're not managing state in two places. State just exists solely on the server, and yeah, it just makes things pretty simple. Um, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to jump into the GitHub repo. I stay pretty active there, and I try to answer any questions. But yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for watching.